This man lived through the depths of struggle, carrying the weight of his past, and the unexpected lesson he teaches will shock you. His journey isn't just about math. It's about redemption, resilience, and confronting the truths we hide. What happens when a simple challenge brings an entire school to its knees? Stay tuned because the ending will leave you speechless. Don't forget to subscribe to Racism Watchdog and turn on notifications to follow this powerful story and stay updated on the next chapter. There's a certain quiet that settles over Jameson High after the last bell rings. The buzz of equations and debates and teenage energy fades, and what's left is the low hum of hallway lights and the occasional squeak of sneakers from the gym. In that stillness, Mr. Ellison moved like clockwork, methodical, invisible, precise. Most students at Jameson High knew of him. Not his story. Not his name really, just Mr. E. Or that janitor who's always humming jazz. He'd been part of the school longer than most teachers, pushing his mop down the same polished halls of this elite STEM magnet school nestled in a gentrified corner of the city. Jameson was the kind of place where 11th graders had summer internships at biotech firms, where 8th graders already knew what an integral was. There was pride in that. But it came with layers. Social divisions weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They lived in who sat with whom in the cafeteria, who got invited to the robotics club offsite events, who was seen. Mr. Ellison was not. But he noticed everything. Caleb Nguyen, on the other hand, was one of the golden ones, president of the Math League, part-time coder, full-time overachiever. But his latest obsession was filmmaking, specifically his college entry docuseries project, titled Everyday Heroes. It was part of his application to Stanford's human-centered AI program. The goal: spotlight overlooked workers who made the school function. The cafeteria team, the security guard, the tech guy nobody called by name. People like Mr. Ellison. It was late Tuesday when Caleb stayed after school with his DSLR, hoping to catch a few shots of Mr. Ellison locking up the media lab. "Mr. E," Caleb called, trotting down the hallway, camera bouncing from his neck. Ellison looked up from his keyring. "Evening, Caleb. You've got a minute? I'm doing this doc. Kind of a feature thing. 5 minutes tops." The janitor paused, then gave a small nod. "Sure." The interview started near the west stairwell, camera propped on a trash bin. Caleb asked him the basics: how long he'd worked there, what his day looked like. Ellison kept it light. "Started here in 06. Just cleaning then. Still just cleaning now," he said with a grin. Caleb chuckled. "But you've seen everything, right? All these future coders and rocket scientists in training." Mr. Ellison said, a hint of something in his tone. "They're smart, sure. Good kids. Lot of pressure, though. Pressure can make diamonds or cracks." Caleb leaned in, interested. "You sound like you've taught before." Mr. Ellison hesitated. "Once. Long time ago." "Really? What subject?" "Math," he said simply. "Back before." He trailed off as if pulling the thought back into himself. "Anyway, just a job now." Caleb caught the flicker. Something unsaid. He adjusted the camera. "What happened?" Before Ellison could answer, a voice echoed from a nearby classroom. "Wait, you taught math?" Came Ms. Preston's unmistakable voice, rich with amused disbelief. Ms. Preston was the kind of teacher who made calculus sound like slam poetry. Sharp, quick-witted, always one line ahead. Her students adored her. Her colleagues respected her edge. But sometimes she didn't know when a joke landed too hard. She stepped into the hallway, still holding a dry erase marker. "No offense, Mr. E, but what level are we talking?" "Basic algebra. Trig." Mr. Ellison gave a slight nod, still standing straight. "Used to lecture multivariable, years back." The hallway stilled for a moment. Then she laughed, half genuine, half smart. "Oh, that's good. Tell you what." She turned to the whiteboard outside her classroom door and scribbled a looping problem, dense with integrals and partial derivatives, clearly AP level. "How about a pop quiz?" she said playfully, motioning to the board. "Just for kicks." A couple of students still in the hallway giggled. Caleb stopped filming, suddenly aware of the shift. Mr. Ellison looked at the problem for a moment. Then, with the same quiet patience he used when scrubbing graffiti off lockers, he picked up the eraser and wiped the board clean. "Have a good evening," he said, and walked on, keys jingling in rhythm. The silence he left behind was louder than her joke. Caleb stood frozen, the camera dangling in his grip. He looked at Miss Preston, who was now fidgeting with her marker, then back at the spot where Mr. Ellison had been. "Was that necessary?" he asked, voice low. Ms. Preston blinked. "Simon, it was just a joke. He knows I didn't mean it." Still, Caleb glanced at the blank board. "He used to lecture that." One of the students muttered, "Like in college?" "No way," another said. "Why's he mopping floors then?" Miss Preston shrugged, lips pursed. "Things happen." Caleb didn't respond. He just turned the camera off and started packing up. But his mind was racing. Later that night, Caleb couldn't shake the image. Mr. Ellison, unfazed, just walking away. Not angry, not humiliated, just still. He replayed the footage from earlier and paused on Mr. Ellison's face when he mentioned he used to teach. There was pride there, hidden under layers of dust and time. And pain. Something didn't add up. Why would a man who once taught college-level calculus end up pushing a broom in the same halls where students now laughed at his expense? And more importantly, what would happen if someone asked him to actually solve that problem? If you love this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the share icon right now to help grow this community. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Comment below with what you want to see next. I read every reply. Every sub and share helps me create more content you love. Thanks for being awesome. Caleb hadn't planned on uploading the clip. It was just a snippet, less than 30 seconds, of Mr. Ellison adjusting his mop handle, smiling slightly as he said, "Used to teach multivariable. Long time ago." But that night, while editing, the weight of what happened in the hallway with Miss Preston still sat on his chest like a stone. So he posted the clip with a single provocative caption. What if the janitor is smarter than the teachers? He didn't tag the school, didn't name names, just uploaded it quietly on TikTok and Instagram and let it be. By morning it had 2,000 views, then 8,000. By lunchtime it crossed 50,000. That afternoon it exploded. The comments started small. "This guy's got a voice like Morgan Freeman. I'd take a class from him in a heartbeat. Janitors know everything." But then, buried among the jokes and emojis, came a comment that changed everything. "Wait, is that Dr. Elijah Ellison? The mathematician? I read his paper in grad school." Another reply, "No way. He used to lecture at Westbridge University, right?" And then, I remembered this guy. He published a paper on racial bias in academic testing back in the late 90s. It caused a whole storm. Then he disappeared. The algorithm took care of the rest. Caleb sat on the bus home, scrolling through the flood of reactions. His phone buzzed like a beehive. There were screenshots of academic journals, PDFs of old conference flyers, even a YouTube video titled, "Dr. Elijah Ellison at TEDx. The Myth of Neutral Testing." The footage was grainy, dated 2002. But it was unmistakably him, Mr. Ellison. Younger. No gray in his beard, no mop in his hand. Just chalk in his grip, numbers blooming on a blackboard behind him like poetry. The video's top comment read, "Can't believe this genius vanished from academia. Wonder where he is now." That evening, Caleb waited outside the science wing. Mr. Ellison was locking up the lab again like always, same routine. But now, Caleb saw it all differently. The precision, the patience, the quiet awareness. Not just habit. Discipline. "Mr. Ellison," he said softly. The janitor turned, reading something in Caleb's eyes. "You saw it," he said. Not a question. Caleb nodded. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Ellison looked at the floor, then back at the boy. His voice, when it came, was low but steady. "I didn't leave teaching, Caleb. I just teach different things now." They sat in the staff lounge, no one else around. The vending machine buzzed in the corner. Mr. Ellison didn't rush through his story. He laid it down like a slow unfolding, each part delicate and worn like a page turned too many times. "I was a tenure-track professor at Westbridge, math department. Spent 6 years building up, publishing, presenting. Then I started researching something uncomfortable." He sipped from a lukewarm coffee. "Patterns in standardized testing. Not just performance gaps, structural bias in the way problems were worded, the assumptions made. The system punishing people for not thinking like the test makers." He smiled without warmth. "You can imagine how that went over." Caleb nodded, eyes wide. "They didn't like me poking holes in their data. Told me to tone it down. I didn't. So they said my work lacked rigor. I lost my shot at tenure. Offers dried up. Quiet doors started closing. And the janitor job? I needed work. I needed to be near young people. The spark's still there, you know. Kids like you. You still have questions." By Friday, the story had jumped platforms. Local news caught on. Then national education blogs. Viral video identifies former math professor working as school janitor. From lecture halls to locker rooms, the curious disappearance of Dr. Elijah Ellison. Jameson High's faculty lounge was a war zone of whispers. Students, once indifferent, now watched Ellison with open curiosity. Some started nodding hello. A few offered fist bumps in the hallway. He returned to each gesture with his usual quiet calm. Nothing had changed in him, but everything around him was shifting. Ms. Preston found a manila envelope on her desk Monday morning. Inside, a printed academic journal article. "The Geometry of Inequity. Unpacking Systemic Bias in Academic Performance Metrics." E. Ellison, 1999. Paper-clipped to it was a sticky note. "You asked me if I remembered how to do derivatives. I still remember why." No signature. She stared at the note for a long time, then folded it back into the envelope. Caleb couldn't let it go. He knocked on Ms. Preston's door during lunch. She looked up, wary. "Got a second?" He sat across from her, pulling up his doc project folder. "I want to do a follow-up. Feature Mr. Ellison again. Maybe even bring him into class." Ms. Preston raised an eyebrow. "You're joking, right?" "I'm not," Caleb said. "He's brilliant. You saw the paper." She leaned back in her chair. "This isn't about brilliance. It's about protocol, liability, credentials. The district has rules. So let's talk to the principal." She sighed, pressing her fingers to her temples. "Caleb, be careful." But Caleb did go to the principal. Principal Harding, grizzled and glassy-eyed, sat behind a fortress of neatly stacked files. The viral clip was paused on his desktop. "I assume you've seen this," he said, motioning to the screen. Mr. Ellison stood calmly in the office across from him. "Is it true?" Harding asked. Are you Dr. Elijah Ellison?" The janitor's reply was simple. "Truth doesn't change, Principal Harding. Only who listens to it." Later that day, the school's intercom system crackled to life between periods. "Attention, students and faculty. Beginning next week, Mr. Caleb Nguyen will present a student-led seminar series during 8th period titled Unseen Educators. Staff and guests welcome to attend." Whispers rippled through the halls. Miss Preston sat in her classroom, rereading Ellison's paper, a tight knot forming in her stomach. The first line read, "Before a student solves for X, someone decides what X should be." News crews started camping outside the school gates. Parents wrote emails, some in outrage, others in awe. One message to the superintendent read, "If this man is who they say he is, why isn't he teaching these kids?" Another read, "I don't send my child to Jameson to be lectured by a janitor." Meanwhile, Ellison kept sweeping, cleaning, humming Coltrane, never once correcting a single person. Caleb's second video began with a slow zoom on Mr. Ellison's hands, steady, weathered, writing out a limit equation on a napkin in the break room. His voiceover said, "Some people teach with degrees, others with dignity, and sometimes the ones we ignore are the ones who already solved the problem. We just never read their work." He ended the clip with a question. What other stories are we walking past every day? Jameson High buzzed with anticipation. The annual Mathletes Showcase was usually a quiet affair, an evening reserved for the academically inclined. Parents in cardigans, extra credit seekers, teachers sipping lukewarm coffee from the PTA cart. But this year was different. The gym was packed. Students whispered as they glanced at the back corner of the bleachers, where Mr. Ellison sat quietly, a faded notebook on his lap. He wasn't on the program, but he didn't have to be. Everyone knew. Even the local news anchor sat near the front, pretending not to be filming on her phone. Micah Reyes, Jameson's star mathlete, state finalist, STEM wonderkind, stepped up to the microphone, his hair slicked and Bowdy-esque. "Tonight," he said with flair, "I challenged this audience with a problem even the AP graders couldn't crack." Laughter. Polite applause. He turned to the massive whiteboard behind him and uncapped a marker. The problem sprawled across the space like a mural of madness. Triple integrals, boundary conditions, imaginary components nested within real derivatives. Gasps rippled through the rows. Caleb watched from backstage, eyes darting to Ellison, who for now sat unmoved. Micah spun to face the crowd. "Anyone?" A long silence. One dad raised his hand halfway. "Is this even solvable?" Micah shrugged. "Theoretically." More laughter. Caleb leaned over to a group of students near Ellison. "Dare him," he whispered. They hesitated, then nudged him playfully. "Come on, Mr. E. Show him how it's done." Ellison looked up, smiled. Not for show, just gently, as if remembering something. He stood. Whispers surged like electricity. He walked to the board without a word, picked up the red marker Micah had dropped. He didn't ask for clarification. He didn't redraw the problem. He just looked, and then he moved. The board filled slowly, cleanly. No crossouts, no hesitation. Where Micah had used brute force, Ellison reframed. He rotated the axes, simplified the boundaries, converted imaginary parts into real dimensions using a trick Caleb later said he'd never seen in a classroom. In 4 minutes, the answer emerged, wrapped in clarity, elegance, and ink. He capped the marker, stepped back. You could hear someone breathing too loudly in the 6th row. Micah blinked, opened his mouth, closed it again. Then Ellison turned to the crowd. "Math," he said, "is not about memorizing steps. It's about seeing." He let the silence settle. Math is about patterns. So is life. Sometimes what you think is random has been calculated for generations. He looked toward the back, where faculty sat frozen. You teach a student that math is objective. But what if the test was never built for their kind of logic? He turned toward the problem again. "This equation," he said, tapping the board, "was just a gate. Like many before it. The key was always there. You just had to see it from where I stood." Miss Preston sat forward slowly, hands folded. She wasn't embarrassed. She looked like someone who'd heard a language they forgot they once knew. The room didn't clap. It couldn't. Not yet. It was too full of something heavier. Reverence. Reflection. Then softly someone did. Then more. Until the gym erupted. Ellison didn't bow. He just nodded once and walked off the stage. Outside, under the school's flickering marquee, a woman approached. Blazer, university crest on her lapel. She extended her hand. "Dr. Ellison, I'm from Meridian University. We'd love to invite you to guest lecture next semester. All expenses covered. Name the course." He looked at the hand, then at the stars. "I appreciate it," he said, "but I'm not looking for a classroom." She hesitated. Then what are you looking for? He paused, then smiled again. I already found it. She started to walk away disappointed. He called after her. But I'll give you one lesson. Just one. She turned. You still got a chalkboard? Back inside, students gathered around Caleb, buzzing with adrenaline and awe. Is it true? One asked. He really worked at a university. Caleb just nodded. He is the university. They turned as Ellison walked back in alone. The bleachers emptied. Phones lifted. Caleb stepped onto the stage again and raised the mic. We didn't plan this, he said. But I think we're all ready. He looked to Ellison. You said you'd give one lesson. The janitor stepped forward. No notes, no slides, just presence. He faced the chalkboard, held the room in a sacred kind of silence, then spoke. Before I teach you calculus, let me show you how they calculated us out. A beat of silence. Then, would you sit in his classroom? Comment below if you would. Tag a teacher who needs to hear this.